Hello, mere pyare bachcho. Welcome back to our geography revision series. I know, exams are coming, and this chapter, water in the atmosphere, can sometimes feel a little, well, complicated. But don't you worry, today we're gonna make it absolutely crystal clear.
That's right. Exams are super close, but what is my #1 rule? Tension nailenika. Just pay attention, okay? We're going to break this entire chapter down into such a simple story, you'll remember it forever. So, are you ready? Let's begin.
All right, so to understand this whole chapter, we are going to follow the fantastic journey of this little fellow right here. Let's call him Chhotu. He's a tiny water drop, and we're going to follow his big adventure from the deep ocean all the way up into the sky, and then back down again. His story is the story of this chapter. Simple, right?
So before Chhotu starts his journey, let's just set the scene. Water is literally all around us. In the air we breathe, now the amount can be very little, like close to 0% in a dry desert, or it can be up to 4% in a really humid place like Mumbai during the monsoon. And our friend Chhotu, he's a master of disguise. He can be a gas, that's water vapor, or a liquid, water, or even a solid, which is ice. And he's always on the move, constantly cycling between the oceans, the air, and the land.
Okay, part 1 of our story, Chhotu's Great Escape. So, how does our little water drop get from a huge ocean all the way up into the sky? Let's find out.
This magical escape has a scientific name: evaporation. Just picture it. The sun is shining brightly, right? It's like a giant heater for the ocean. This heat gives Chhotu and all his friends so much energy. It's like they become super light. They get so energized that they change from liquid water into an invisible gas called water vapor. And poof, they start floating up into the atmosphere.
Okay, so Chhotu is now floating in the air. This is where we need to understand 2 words, absolute and relative humidity. But it's super easy, I promise. Think of the air as a glass. The actual amount of water vapor in that glass, let's say 10 grams, that's the absolute humidity. But relative humidity is about how full the glass is. Is it half full? 70% full? That's relative humidity. And here's the cool part. When the air gets warmer, the glass actually gets bigger, so it can hold more water vapor.
Now what happens when that glass gets 100% full? Completely filled to the brim. At that point, the air is saturated. It just cannot hold one more molecule of water vapor. And the temperature at which this happens, that specific temperature, is called the dew point. It's the point where the air basically shouts, "Bass, stop, I'm full!"
Okay, so Chhotu, our little water vapor hero, is rising higher and higher. But you know what happens when you go up? It gets colder, and an invisible gas like him can't stay a gas forever when it's getting so chilly. So what does he do? Well, it's time for him to make some new friends.
This next stage is called condensation. It's the exact opposite of evaporation. Remember how he got energy to fly up? Now, as the air cools, he loses that energy. He goes from being a gas back to being a tiny liquid droplet. It's almost like he's getting cold and needs to find a friend to hug to turn back into a drop.
So who are these friends he's looking for? Well, they're everywhere. They are tiny, microscopic specks of dust or smoke or even salt from the ocean, just floating in the air. The fancy science name is Hygroscopic Nuclei, but just think of them as tiny little platforms. They are the perfect little things for Chhotu to grab onto and turn back into a liquid drop.
And when millions and billions of Chhotus do this together, they create things we see all the time. When you wake up and the grass is wet? That's dew. If it gets super cold, below 0 degrees, that dew freezes and becomes frost. That thick, low cloud that makes it hard to see when you're driving? That's fog. And of course, way up in the sky, they all get together to form clouds.
Now, clouds aren't all the same. They're like big families, grouped by how they look and how high up they are. There are 4 main families to remember. First, way up high, you have the cirrus clouds. They're thin and wispy, like feathers. Then in the middle, you have the classic fluffy cotton wool clouds. Those are cumulus. Lower down, you get the gray, blanket-like clouds called stratus. And finally, the most dramatic ones, the nimbus clouds. These are the dark, gray, angry-looking clouds that mean rain is definitely on the way.
Let's zoom in on one of my favorites, the cumulus cloud. Look here, on the left is the real picture from your textbook, and on the right is our friendly cartoon version. See that? They look exactly like big puffs of cotton. And notice the flat bottom, that's a key feature.
That flat base shows the exact height where the air got cool enough for Chhotu to condense. I bet these are the exact clouds you used to draw as a child, right?
All right, so Chhotu and millions of his buddies are having a big party inside a cloud. But what happens when the party gets too crowded? The cloud gets heavier and heavier and heavier. It's time for the climax of our story, Chhotu's Big Fall.
And this big fall has a name, precipitation. It's actually quite simple. Inside the cloud, all the tiny Chhotus start bumping into each other and joining up. They become bigger, fatter water drops. Eventually, they get so heavy that the air just can't hold them up any longer. And down they come, back to Earth.
Now, Chhotu can come back down in different outfits depending on the temperature. If it's above freezing, he just comes down as normal rainfall. But if it's super cold all the way from the cloud to the ground, he becomes beautiful little ice crystals. That's snowfall. Sometimes you get these tiny frozen ice pellets called sleet, and if things get really wild inside a storm cloud, he can become big lumps of ice called hail. Yeah, that can definitely hurt.
But wait a minute, have you ever wondered why it rains? I mean, what actually pushes Chhotu and his friends out of the cloud? It's not always the same reason. There are actually 3 main ways rain can get started. Let's quickly look at the 3 types of rainfall.
First up, we have convectional rain. Think of a super hot summer afternoon. The ground gets really, really hot, right? This heats up the air right above it. This hot, moist air then shoots upwards really fast, it cools down and forms a huge cloud. And then, boom, you get a sudden, heavy downpour, often with thunder and lightning. You see this a lot near the equator.
Next is orographic rain. Oro just means mountain, so this is mountain rain. Imagine moist air coming from the Arabian Sea. It hits the Western Ghats. Now this air can't go through the mountains, so it's forced to go up. As it rises, it cools and dumps all its rain on one side. We call that the windward side. That's why places like Mumbai get so much rain. But by the time the air gets over the mountain, it's all dry. That other side is called the leeward side, or the rain shadow area. It's a perfect example.
And the third type is cyclonic rain. This is what happens when a huge mass of warm, moist air crashes into a mass of cold air. This causes big, swirling storms and lots of rain. Now, your textbook goes into a lot more detail on this in Chapter 9, so make sure you give that a read to understand cyclones better.
And that's it. That's Chhotu's whole adventure, from ocean to sky and back again. See, we've covered the entire chapter. But are we done? No way! It's time for the most important part, the exam prep corner. Let's get you ready to ace those questions.
All right, quick MCQ for you, straight from the textbook exercises. Ready? Which one of the following is the highest cloud in the sky? Your options are A, Cirrus, B, Stratus, C, Nimbus, or D, Cumulus. Come on, think back to the cloud families. You can pause here if you need a second.
Okay, do you have your answer locked in? The correct answer is A, Cirrus. Yes, fantastic if you got that right. Remember, cirrus clouds are the super high, thin, feathery ones made of ice crystals. Highest in the sky.
And now, before I go, one question for you. Next time you look out your window, just look up at the sky. What kind of clouds do you see most often where you live? Are they the fluffy cotton-like cumulus or the flat, gray stratus clouds? Drop your answer in the comments. I would love to read them. All the very best for your exams, but John. Study hard, but don't stress. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next chapter summary. Bye-bye for now.